Good morning, Shamita. And if it's quite alright, I'll check my pictures, 'cause I'm not here for any reason. I just want them to be safe. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. How are you? It's been a while. I'm doing the family week, but I hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to do an update video on the Jussie Smollett case. At first, it was a thing of like, what's the worst thing I could do for my life and career? But then it became a thing of like, oh, maybe I could ruin my trainer's life and career too. But then it became a thing of like, oh, maybe I could get sued by the city of Chicago. But then it became a thing of like, oh. All right. Today, like I said, I'm going to do an update on the old Smollett case. Lots happened. 2 months ago, I did a video where the main theme was that I was very surprised he wasn't pleading guilty, because I figured that with again, all this is allegedly, this is all my opinion, don't sue me, but I figured that he would plead it way down from 16 felonies possibly to not even one felony, come out and say, yo, I blew it, you guys, I'm sorry, it was a publicity stunt, I blew it. I'm sorry. And then, if you remember the charges, they decided, the state's attorney's office, Kim Foxx, who we'll get to, man, I bet she better be getting paid, because she just flushed her career down the old Watts too. But anyway, so then, if you remember, the charges, I did a video on this, evaporated into thin air. The state's attorney, the language they used is that they decided not to prosecute, which they said, this happens all the time, this is what we do. And then Kim Foxx emailed her office being like, hey, everybody, this is urgent. I need everybody to search every case we've ever done and find one that we've decided not to prosecute in this, like, looks exactly like this, so we can say, look, we always do this. Well, they couldn't find one. And then it was a thing of like, oh. Okay, so then they decide not to prosecute. I did a video about how the charges evaporated into thin air. And then one of the weirdest parts of that whole secret meeting where they came in and decided not to prosecute. But then the little deal was, according to the state's attorney's office, if we don't prosecute, well, then you're going to forfeit your $10,000 bond. You're going to give that away. And then also, you are going to do community service. That's their little deal. I called it the privileged plea deal, because it essentially was a plea deal of, you do this and this, money, community service, and it'll over. But the difference between the privilege plea deal and a normal plea deal that us just normal folk would get is that he got to maintain his innocence and not have to, he kind of got to worm his way out of he never had to take responsibility and plead guilty. So it was like a deal, like a innocent plea deal or something. But like I said, it was weird, and there's not really a way for the state's attorney or for Smollett's attorney. There's no way to be like, this is what they always do for everybody. Okay, and then one of the most interesting parts of that plea deal, in my opinion, so they have the secret meeting, they come up with the community service $10,000 deal, but then his lawyer got to come out first. And I think that's huge, because they got to get the narrative going. So his lawyer came out and said, all the charges are dropped. My client is innocent and blah, blah, blah. And so she got to use the verbiage, they got dropped. The charges got dropped. Even though if you all the interviews with the state attorney's office, everybody is like, no, they weren't dropped. We decided not to prosecute. It's different than if the charges were dropped, because he did the $10,000 bond and the community service. So not dropped, but his lawyer comes out and like, the charges have all been dropped. And that is important because that's the language. If you watch any news coverage on it now, that's what they say, that the charges were dropped. Even the ones that are totally against Smollett, that's the language they use. It possibly could be because the decision not to prosecute that phrase is less familiar than just charges dropped. So maybe they're just trying to make it easier on people. But his lawyer coming out first and doing that interview of just like, the charges were all dropped, really controlled the narrative. Okay, so then now where are we? Well, his attorney, so he comes out, charges dropped, and then the police department is furious in Chicago, and they are up in arms. They call for Kim Foxx, who's the state attorney who recused herself because she was talking to people, but then she just like officially recused herself, I think, because if the whole thing went to shit, she could be like, look, I recused myself, but she kept working on it. And so the police department in Chicago called for her resignation. They said, we have no confidence in Kim Foxx. This is just absolutely embarrassing. We had all this evidence. We worked really hard, hundreds of thousands of dollars of man hours. We gave that to a grand jury who decided on, so all of this was just so Kim Foxx could, get a call from high up. And so they called for her resignation. She didn't. She stood by her decision to just eliminate the charges. Okay, so then what happened after that? So then all the news stations and everything have no idea what's going on, because it's like, are the charges dropped? Did he do community service? What's with the 10? If you really were attacked by racists and put a noose around your neck and they dumped a liquid on you, that if you don't know what the liquid is, you're going to think it's pee. That's just natural, right? I think that's the biggest evidence that he knew the guys or planned it himself, is because he left the noose on that had the liquid on it, which was bleach or something on his, they like dumped. But if you don't know what the liquid is, your first instinct is going to be like, they dumped pee on me. There's pee on me. I want to take this shirt and the noose off immediately and put on a shirt with less possible pee on it. But he kept it on. Anyway, so all the news stations are like, wait, we don't get it. And everybody that works with Kim Foxx, everybody in that office was like, no, they didn't drop the charges. He's not innocent. No one thinks he's innocent. No one here thinks he's innocent. And they're all looking like they're taking a beating during these interviews, because they can just tell they're like, God, we have no respect. Obviously, some higher up made a phone call. Could have been Schmieda herself. That's what we maybe decided last video, that maybe Schmieda called in and got Smollett off. But anyway, a powerful person made a phone call. And if you're working the Justice Department in Chicago, that sucks. It's like you're trying to have justice, and this is your career, and just to be able to have some powerful person be able to call in a favor, it kind of just, it's like, all right, he just wormed his way out. And then, so right after the charges were not decided to just go away, and then they did a round of interviews with the Justice Department being like, what is going on? And everyone's like, no, he's not innocent. We just made a deal, a very light deal with the bond. Okay, well then Jussie Smollett's lawyer, what's her name? Tina Gladian has to go and do a round of all the shows and interviews too. And these are hilarious, because all the justice people had just done interviews being like, no, not charges not dropped, not innocent, definitely guilty. Wasn't a problem with the evidence. It wasn't a problem with anything. They just decided for some reason to let it all go. So then she goes and does all the TV shows, but it's a weird thing to go into an interview with. And I'm sure, it's her job, but I'm sure she was not looking forward to doing these interviews because you're just like, all right, well, I'm going on the Today Show and I have to pretend that my client is just totally innocent, even though that it looks like, and according to everyone else that worked on it except me, that he's just 100% guilty. And so she gets to go on these interviews and they just grill her. They're like, well, were the charges dropped? Or why would you give away your $10,000? If you got attacked by racists and then the cops blamed you and not the racist, you're not going to just forfeit your bond. You're going to say, no. I'm not giving you guys $10,000 after all this. You ruined my career. I'm not going to be able to work on Empire or get another acting job. Everyone hates me. Everyone thinks I am a pathetic worm that was helped out of this trouble that I created for myself and everyone around me by having someone powerful make a phone call. And so, oh no, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, okay, so I don't know what I was saying, but so she's doing these interviews just basically being like, he is innocent, and my client didn't do anything, and the people grilling her are like, oh, yeah, so they're like, well, why would you give away $10,000 and do community service if you didn't do it? That's a good question, and his lawyer is just stuck being like, well, it's his character. He loves doing community service. He always has done community service, and he likes to do it. And they're like, well, why do you give away his $10,000? And he's like, well, he didn't want to, but we decided that it would be the best thing to do. And they're like, so if he is totally innocent and these charges were dropped because he was totally innocent and just like the cops screwed up the investigation, then are the two brothers that everybody thought that he paid to assault him, are the two brothers, they really did assault him then? And she really has nothing else to say other than yes. She's like, yeah, they must have. That's what happened. So the only way to keep their story going is that, Jussie is just totally innocent and just a big fat victim, both with the attack and then with the police department afterwards. If you want to just be the total victim, the only thing to do is they have to keep saying that those two brothers did it. Well, you can't just go on TV and say that two people committed a hate crime that didn't. So then, right after that round of interviews, or a little bit time later, the two brothers that he allegedly paid to assault him and call him the N-word and put a noose around his neck and put bleach on him, sued his lawyer for I think, defamation. And you don't really see too many lawyers get sued in cases, but this one is so then his lawyer, so the brothers and his lawyer are now suing Jussie Smollett's lawyer because it's like, you can't just tell everyone we did something that is going to ruin our life and reputation that we didn't do, okay? We're a part of this, and we're willing to take responsibility, but you can't just say, my client is totally innocent, and he has a good character, and he loves doing community service when he's innocent. We all do. All right, so they sue the lawyer. That's one of many new lawsuits in this one. So the lawyer's getting sued. And so I want to go back at this point, and my first video on this, I couldn't believe that he didn't plead guilty because I thought he could plead the 16 felonies way, way down, apologize, be like, yo, I blew it, and then start moving on with his life. Like, if I was his defense attorney, I think part of this whole thing, or I guess his friends or family or defense attorney, if I was someone that was really going for Jussie Smollett, it would be like, how do you get from in front of this to putting it behind you with the least amount of, the best way to have a decent life after, this is a huge mistake, obviously. This was the biggest mistake. And so how do you get past this whole thing? And where we are right now, or how he just wormed his way out, just privileged worm out. And he threw those other brothers that everyone thinks that helped, that he paid to do this. He threw them under the bus. He threw, Kim Foxx's career and respect is gone. I think no one, believes that she is a real beacon of justice at this point. And everyone hates him, Jussie, because if even Chris Rock at that award show was ragging on him, and even like super liberal Hollywood at the award show, even they were laughing at him and just being like, God, Jussie, you blew it. And so how I think that my people, I had said, well, you got to just plead it way down, apologize. And then when the charges got dropped, everyone was saying, well, obviously he shouldn't have pleaded guilty. Well, now where we're at, he had a Broadway show that he was going to work on. They got rid of him. Empire decided not to put him in. You can't hire Jussie Smollett. It comes with so much baggage to a project that he can't. I don't think he's going to be able to work in Hollywood. And so even though he would have had to plead guilty and apologize and probably pay, I think, it's my opinion, that it would have been better for his life as a whole and moving forward to just take responsibility instead of using the privilege to just kind of get out of it. All right, so his lawyer's getting sued by the brother's lawyer. And with that lawsuit, you could get a lot of stuff that we hadn't heard yet, like their statements, stuff like that. Let's see. Okay, so let's get to Kim Foxx. She is the state's attorney that at first was working on it and then officially recused herself because she's like, oh yeah, I was talking to Jussie Smollett's family and someone like a ex-chief of staff for Obama, or, she was talking to all these people about the case. So she was like, I recuse myself, but then just kept working on it. But this is really interesting because I'm thinking everybody called for her resignation. I don't think anybody that knows anything about this case thinks that she did a good job or thinks that she cares about justice. This feels very much like, Shmita from the top made a phone call down. And so I was thinking last night, it's like, I hope that Kim is getting paid. Kim, if you ever see this, I hope you're getting paid or you're promised some high-up political job after this whole thing. Because why would you just flush your entire career and credibility down the toilet for Jussie? He's just like he's a B, C level actor, and it's like, why? I don't get it. It's going to be interesting what Kim gets out of this in the future, because right now, there's just really no respect on any level. All right, so then also a weird thing with the secret meeting where they decided the privileged plea deal is the records were all sealed. So it felt like this 1984, the records are sealed. And then the Chicago Tribune sued to get the records unsealed, and a bunch of other media agencies too. And then the Smollett's lawyer had argued to get the records sealed by saying he just wants to be private. We owe this to him as a private citizen that these records are sealed. Well, then the judge very recently said, no, we're unsealing him because I get that he gets privacy, but if he wanted privacy, he didn't have to go and do nationwide interviews. And you didn't, on his behalf, you did all the interviews. So if you wanted privacy, you shouldn't have gone out and said that the cops did a bad job. And one of the most insane parts of one of the interviews that his lawyer did, they were like, didn't he say that both of the attackers were white? And those two brothers look really black to me. They're about as black as, you can be. And the lawyer goes, well, it didn't take me too long to find out with a little bit of Googling. I'm surprised the police force didn't look into this, but with a little bit of Googling, I saw one of the brothers in whiteface with white makeup on doing a Joker monologue. And these two brothers were trying to be actors, so they're just like doing monologues on YouTube. A lot of actors have that. And to try to use it just goes back to how insane her interviews were. It's like, well, he had Joker makeup on. Oh. But then the city of Chicago, the records are sealed. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So those records were sealed. And then the city of Chicago gives Jussie Smollett a bill of $130,000 and says you have this amount of time to pay it. He refused. Again, I think that he should have just paid it and said, I'm sorry. And that would have helped him in many other, he's got to get over the court of public opinion too, and just continuing to worm your way out of it isn't gaining people's respect. So he just didn't pay the $130K because he doesn't want to admit guilt. So then after the time ran out to pay the bill, they sued him. So now they're going for, I think, $390,000 in the city of Chicago in a lawsuit to Jussie Smollett. So there's that. And then there's the defamation suit by the brothers to his lawyer. It's just turning into a total shit show. Okay, and then there's the lawsuit of the Chicago Tribune to get the records unsealed, which a judge in the past week or so sided with the Chicago Tribune and unsealed the records. The records really weren't much. A lot of it was just the media's attempt to get the records unsealed. But the records are unsealed, which is, I think, a win, because it's too scary for just normal people in this country if the records can be sealed and there can be secret meetings and charges can disappear and favors can be called in, because it's great if you have connections and stuff to just, if there's a fake system that anything can happen. But if you're on the other side of that and just someone in power hates you, then they could just as easily have a little fake meeting and just screw you. So it could go the other way. So I think the city of Chicago and America needs this to be worked out, just so we have confidence that our system isn't totally fake and can be manipulated by Schmida herself. But I think that's all I got for this update. A lot of lawsuits now, lots of lawsuits, and just nothing, no good news for Smollett, Kim Foxx, or anyone on that side trying to get the whole thing to go away. People are behind it and want answers. All right, so last thing I wanted to tell you guys is, so I got an email from a publicity manager from a publishing company in LA, and their client is wrote a book on Stephanie Lazarus, and they were like, we'll send you a book, like if you want to talk about it. It goes into all this detail. And so I haven't responded yet, but I was thinking that, so there's two ways that I could respond. One is I could just be nice and be like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, go ahead and send me a book. If I I'll give it a read, and if I think that there's new details or something that I want to talk about, we can agree on a price for, you can pay me a little bit, for talking about it. So I could send that email. Or what I also was thinking too, she left her number. I was thinking just call her at like 3 a.m, and she wouldn't answer, but just leave a message and be like, listen, lady, you want me to help you sell your fucking book? I want one interview with the real Schmieda. You know what I'm talking about. Make it happen. And she'd be like, oh, God, who is this guy? True crime loser? But maybe I'll just get an interview with the real Schmieda. I don't know. Also, too, you can see we've been working on the set. We have a nice new shelf to let the mugs live on as the mug chapter comes to an end. And then also the official Lie Cry horn. Look at this, people. We didn't have a Lie Cry today, but look at this. It extends. It moves. Out of respect, I was going to do a Lie Cry bell, but out of respect for my neighbors and little T, I went with a horn. But anyway, I love you all. That's it for me today. True Crime Loser out. Why? Stiving why.